Hey there, I'm Roy Arthur, and welcome to another edition of Unbelievable Reality Podcast. I happen to be your host, and once again at a remote location, undisclosed, I might add. Let's just jump right in with our discussion for today. And I'd like to start out with, I really love comments. Comments are awesome, and what I like even more than that is criticism. I think criticism is a lovely thing. You can only grow through criticism. But, just saying, for all you negative mega folks out there that like to give negative comments, which I enjoy immensely, do not get me wrong, can y'all come up with some new material? I mean, really? Beta male? Yeah, that's right up there with Let's Go Brandon, something that only you people understand and everybody else is like, what exactly is your point? My other favorites are Moron, and to really show how intellectually savvy you are, Retard. Wow, way to make fun of the handicapped folks. That's just really sad. I mean, literally. If you're, and my other favorite for Kamala is idiot. That one I idiot. Law degree, Attorney General, State of California, Vice President, District Attorney of San Francisco. I think idiot doesn't really apply here. Now maybe you are, and you're just projecting, which makes sense based on the complexity of your feedback. But one thing I can assure you is Kamalaharris is not a fucking idiot. Now on the other side, I'm not going to go there, although just yesterday J.D. Vance and all of his intelligentsia advocated for people that are out on charges of domestic violence on restraining orders, that they should be able to keep their weapons. JD, there's a reason why there's a restraining order. Usually top of the list is threat of physical violence. And yeah, if you're out on a DV charge with a restraining order, you shouldn't have a fucking gun. Any idiot can figure that out. Just saying. But I know your years in the field in Iraq as a, quote, military journalist have you well informed. Anyway, just wanted to cover that. So please feel free to criticize, insult, etc. I embrace it and encourage it. Just let's try to get a little bit more intellectual about it, don't you think? You know, maybe not steal your put down from Bob, who you saw online just yesterday. Beta male, I'll sure get him. I'll tell him. No, dude, really? Fuck me. That is just too damn funny. Anyway, enough of the dissembling. So I want to talk about today something that nobody wants to talk about. So that's why I thought I should talk about it, because it's pretty goddamn important. And it's really important right now. One thing we have not heard from either side, from either candidate, either Mr. Trump nor Kamala Harris, is a single word in regards to defense and defense budgets and international arms sales. Not a word. The defense budget is a sacred cow that is not to be spoken of, that is passed every year, bipartisan, without hardly any pushback whatsoever. Our defense budget is fucking insane. And I would ask this, because I'm confused. Other than the two wars that we initiated, i.e. Afghanistan and Iraq, are we at war currently? Am I missing something? Because I really think I must be missing something, because our defense budget indicates that we are fully engaged, not in just a war, but apparently a world war that none of us are aware of. But it's making a whole bunch of people a whole bunch of money, and that's making them happy. So here's some statistics that I came up with, and this is why I really feel that somebody needs to scream at both of these candidates and say, what the fuck are you gonna do about this? I'd like to start off with a little quote before I get into the numbers and bore you to tears or make you cry, because you should. Because when I got these numbers, I not only wanted to cry, I just wanted to, I don't know. I'm filled with despair. It's no damn wonder why our country is so upside fucking down on social issues. President Eisenhower, one of the most beloved and respected presidents in American history, as he should have been. He made mistakes. Korea would happen to be one of them. But in his farewell address, he specifically pointed out, beware of the military-industrial complex. And he went even further, and this is in the 50s, mind you, and warned of the rise of a aristocratic class in the tech industry. Not only did he warn about the military-industrial complex, he actually warned us about what is actually happening right now. And who would those people be? Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, on and on and on. A new aristocracy brought on by the ownership of technology and the denial of science. If you've never actually read Eisenhower's farewell address, I highly recommend it. I know most of you won't, because you'd have to read, and it's not on your phone. But you can get it on your phone, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time to read. It's worth noting how prescient Eisenhower actually was 70 years ago. How he saw what was coming down the path 70 years ago. And today we're still ignorantly, blissfully ignoring the warnings. Kind of reminds you of climate change, doesn't it? Scientists have been blowing the whistle on that bad boy for 50 plus years, right? And yet we go our merry way and continue to ignore them. Until what? Oh, right, it's too late. That's gonna be a bitch, isn't it? So, let's just talk about defense though for just a second. Now, there was a bunch of squawking going on in regards to the passing of the defense budget for 2024, which is $841.5 billion, just south of $1 trillion. We will hit $1 trillion in defense spending, most likely within the next 3 to 4 years, 5 years tops. Once again, somebody remind me of what we're defending. The United States has not been invaded since Pearl Harbor. Where is this money going? And why? Well, let me tell you where and why. 4 major companies own 90+% of all weapons manufacturing, research and development, and sales. And those 4 companies are Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. Maybe the reason that Boeing's having such a hard time building aircraft that don't fall out of the fucking sky is because they make way more money on building bombs and missiles and shit like that to sell to foreign countries. And our government kindly and politely looks away. In some cases, we actually facilitate that sale. To case in point, during the Biden administration, he oversaw 2 sales of arms to Israel. One for $127 million, another one for $87 million. These are sales. These are bullets, bombs, missiles, rockets, etc. to the Israelis. as we sit here today, the death toll from the Palestinians is north of 40,000 people. And granted, the Israelis are right to be extremely pissed because of what happened in October of last year when Hamas invaded Israel and wantonly slaughtered 1,200 people. However, in the search for the pound for flesh, I really think Israel's gotten enough. Don't you think? Because of those 40,000 dead, 80+% are civilians. Hamas wasn't that big. Isn't that big. And the country is in ruins. It's uninhabitable. Rebuilding, how does that even happen? Questions beyond my scope. But this is one of the things the US government does. It sells weapons. Now, isn't that interesting? Because we have a budget of $841.5 billion to the defense industry. Here's where I get really confused. American taxpayers are paying the defense industry to build weapons that they're turning around, and our very government is turning around and selling to foreign countries. What in the fuck is that? And let me give you an idea of what kind of numbers we're talking about here in foreign sales from the big four. Once again, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon. $157.5 billion in direct sales to foreign countries. These are not commercial airlines. These are bullets, bombs, missiles, rockets, etc. That's what they're selling. And the US government, our very own government, sold $81 billion in military hardware in 2023. These are numbers from 23. There's no numbers for 24 yet because we're not quite to the end of it, but I'm sure they're going to be shocking as hell as well. But here's where it gets really, really interesting. And this is why neither candidate wants to touch this. First of all, the United States is carrying a $35 trillion national debt. Trillion dollars. I remember just a decade ago when we hit 14 trillion and every economist in the US lost their fucking mind, saying that that was it, we're over, we're done, blah, 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 we've got to cut borrowing, and i.e. spending. Nah, we blew right through that. Matter of fact, we tripled our debt in a decade. And a good portion of that debt is going where? It's going to the defense industry. No fucking lies. The industry. The six subdivisions of the Defense Department are as follows: Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard. 6. Now, we've got a budget of $841 billion for 2024, but the United States government spent $2.09 trillion on those 6 subcomponents of the Defense Department. $2 trillion in a year to the 6 subcomponents of our Defense Department. Once again, somebody shake me and remind me where we're actually at war. And if we have recently been invaded. You want to talk about big business? I've already done an episode on homeless billionaires, about the billionaires in the tech and finance industry that are controlling a great majority of what happens in this country. They're nothing compared to the defense industry. Nothing. But the two go hand in hand. $2 trillion was spent. One can only imagine what would happen if just out of this 8... Oh, and by the way, here's another one that's fun. Our next closest competitor in military spending is China at $247 billion. A third of what we spend for a country that's 4 times larger than ours. And then coming in third is those Russians that have us living under the duress and threat of nuclear holocaust and have since the 50s. Thank you so much, defense industry and your lobbying group, continuing to scare the U.S. population and citizenry of our country into believing we've got to keep spending more money on weapons to deter the Russian threat. Folks, these guys are marching out World War II tanks in Ukraine. They're spending 1/10 of what we're spending on national defense. If they hit the button, how many of their fucking nuclear missiles do you think are even gonna fly? With this amount of military spending, which they're burning through massively just attacking a nation that didn't do fucking anything against them, they just want their resources and land, and some mythical reunification of the Russia that never fucking existed, they still, $109 billion. They can't maintain or build anything new. There's no threat. The Russians are not our threat. That's make-believe propaganda. Once again, these are things that Kamala and Donald aren't even touching. Do you want to know why they're not touching them? Well, let me help you out. The defense industry spent $2.5 billion in lobbying and campaign contributions in the last 20 years. $2.5 billion on lobbying. Do you draw any parallels here? Conclusions here? I mean, if you're running for national office, do you want to piss off the richest group of people there is, i.e. the defense industry? Every year the defense industry comes to the trough and asks for more, and we give it to them. And they're self-defeating. This is an endless loop. Because every time they sell weapons abroad, they have an excuse to make new ones to beat the ones they just sold. And so they go to the government and say, oh my gosh, they have the latest technology, BT dub, we sold it to them. So now we've got to invest another $100 billion in figuring out a missile that doesn't fly straight and it's invisible. So we're more prepared to kill people than they are. Defense of what? We're not defending, we're attacking. We're not peace. We're not promoting peace and goodwill and quote unquote Christian values. We're poking the hornet's nest. We're advocating strife by selling weapons to countries that have indiscriminate use of them. They don't care if they kill civilians. They don't care who they kill. By turning a blind eye to that, all we're doing is perpetuating this cycle of war that mankind has been trapped in for millennia. That's what we're doing. The defense industry has created the perfect machine to constantly need to be fed because we live in fear of what will happen if we don't. And neither one of these political groups will speak to that. They will not tell the truth. Nobody in Congress will either. Not anybody. Nobody. And if you raise your hand and complain about the arms sales to Israel, you're automatically labeled as an anti-Semite. Bullshit. This is common fucking sense. They're killing civilians. Doesn't mean I hate Jews. Personally, I don't give a fuck. They're happy to be Jews. Be Jews. It's none of my business. Once again, I don't care about Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Confucianisms. I don't give a shit. It's your religion. It's your right to practice. All right, that's fine. I do give a shit when you start killing people over it. I do give a shit when you start killing people to take their possessions, to control, and you do it indiscriminately. That I do take issue with. And that's not anti-Semitic in the fucking slightest. It's common sense. And those that don't have common sense, or refuse to do that, or want to label it as anti-Semitism, are full of shit. Completely full of shit. Israel is another sacred cow, and that is for another podcast. But if you really do the math on it, what do we get from Israel? What? Oil, gas, food, what? Apparently some drone technology. But they buy a bunch of weapons from us, so they're our best friends. So the final conclusion on all of this too is, imagine what if not even all, what if we took a quarter of the defense budget for 1 year? A quarter. $220 million. Or billion. It's so hard to keep track of this. Million, billion, trillion. The numbers are just, they blow your mind. They're so astronomical, they're not possible to comprehend as a normal human being. But imagine that we took a quarter of the defense budget and applied that to the problems that face us in the here and now in the very country we live in. Oh, I don't know. People not being able to afford to live, not being able to afford housing, our homeless crisis, our medical crisis. We have the best medicine in the world, but it's completely unaffordable and unattainable to the masses. Health insurance is unaffordable. Obamacare was a good first step, but it in no way solves the problem. Our healthcare system is broke. It's broken beyond repair. It needs to be torn apart and rebuilt. Look at how well the healthcare system stood up during COVID. It was a disaster. People died of heart attacks, cancer, you name it, because they couldn't get into the hospitals because of COVID. Because the healthcare system is not prepared. And how much money are we spending on being prepared for the next pandemic? Missiles are not going to help, nor bombs, nor bullets, nor any of the above. The Defense Department, the defense industry wasn't able to help at all in regards to our last epidemic. In what world will they be positioned to be able to help with the next one? Just imagine for a minute what kind of impact we could have on American society if we cut military spending by 25% a year. If we stopped allowing these companies that we are paying to quote unquote build the military devices to protect us. Remember, it's called the Department of Defense. It's not called the Department of Offense. It's not called the Department of take our money and then go make money on our money, then come back and ask for more. Why does Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Raytheon need $841 billion from the U.S. government when they're making $200 billion a year in selling their arms? Why do you need our help? This conversation is a conversation that needs to happen now, not later, right now. Because with the advent of AI, we are fast approaching Terminatorville, the world of autonomous warfare. And when and if AI ever becomes sentient, which we pray that doesn't happen, but some evil genius is out there trying to work on it right now as we sit here. The blending of the two, tech and defense, the blending of those two industries is going to dictate the future of mankind, and it's happening right now. How do we stop this? Voices, noise. And who do we vote for? But until there's a conversation around this very topic, And the fact that they're hiding, this is one of the things that really pisses me off. The budget is 841. That's how much we gave them. But we actually spent $2 trillion. So the budget's a lie. It's all a fucking lie. We've actually spent 3 times what we had budgeted for. So ask yourself at home, if you spend 3 times on going out to dinner, 3 times more than you had budgeted, would you be able to pay your rent? If you spent 3 times more than anything that you had budgeted for, would you be able to pay your electric bill? Gas bill, car payment, insurance, take your pick. And yet the US government continues to spend and spend and spend without a worry about being able to pay their rent, because they're like, screw it, we don't care. To the tune of, once again, $35 trillion in debt. So, Vice President Harris, so ex-President Trump, what's your opinion on defense spending? I know what DT wants to do. He wants to kick open the door and just spend more. Just like he says, drill baby drill. Fuck climate change, that ain't my problem, as long as my rich friends get richer. What about Kamala? What about her? What's her position on this? Because right now, the way things are shaping up, it really looks like this is going to be a Democratic win from top to bottom. Because the Republican Party and their nominees, JD and Donald, just keep shooting themselves in the foot. And as long as they keep spouting their nonsensical bullshit that only appeals to their rabid base of fanatics, because that's what they are, they're fanatics, you're not getting any new votes, dudes. You're not getting undecideds. It ain't happening. So this big fat pig that's really tanking our economy, all the other crap about spending cuts and how we're going to do this and that and the other, and and cut college tuition, and it's all bullshit. It all means nothing. Nothing. If we don't deal with defense budget and defense spending, it all means nothing. And the big ghost of, there's $14 trillion in student loan debt out there. You know what? $35 trillion in U.S. government debt? Yeah, student loan debt. That's a big fucking problem. I mean, why should anybody pay their student loans? If the government doesn't pay its bills, why should the taxpayer pay their bills? That logic is kind of staring us in the face. Makes you wonder when we're going to get to it. Oh, and some closing news that I just find so just enlightening. Our 2 favorite billionaires, who are genius billionaires, forgive me, Donald Trump's incredible investment in Truth Social has now reached an all-time low of $21.45 a share, which has cut the value of Truth Social by 60%. Ooh, pain. Feels so bad for him. But my favorite is our favorite genius, Elon Musk. He, the breeder, he has managed all by himself to take his $40 billion buy of X, formerly known as Twitter, and devalue the company to the point where it's only worth $19 billion. In a mere 2 years, he's cut the value of the company in half. And the worst part is the $13 billion he borrowed from, JP Morgan, US Bank, etc., through the too big to fail banks. They can't dump the debt because they got nobody that wants to buy it. Yeah, we should really listen to both of these guys, because these guys are geniuses and unbelievably astute businessmen. Oh, and one final thought on Musk. Tesla's never turned a profit. Ever. So how good a businessman is this dude? As always, those are my opinions and thoughts, and if you don't like it, turn the fucking video off, or just don't listen. Either way, I really don't care.